back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we got two more teams that we're covering here today. We're going through our reviews. We're kind of coming down to the wire a bit. We're getting through a lot of them here, and we
We're on the home
have
stretch.
we are on the home stretch. And if I'm not mistaken, I kind of think these are the two last teams in the Central Division.
Yeah, this is wrapping up the Central Division today.
Yeah, and those two teams are, of course, the Colorado Avalanche and the Chicago Blackhawks. Brundi, I'll give you dealer's choice. Do you want to start or do you want to go second?
You know what? We'll start from the bottom and work our way to the top. So we will start off with the second worst team in the NHL last year being the Chicago Blackhawks. If that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, before we kind of dive into some of the moves they made and where the roster's at now, just kind of looking back at last season, the Blackhawks finished the season with a record of 23 wins, 53 regulation losses, and 6 overtime shootout losses for 52 points. The over-under for them going into the season was 72.5. So they were well on the under, as we kind of all predicted them to be. Goals for 179. That was the worst in the entire league. Goals against 290. That was 29th in the league. So not a whole lot of offense and not a whole lot of defense for them last year. And to be expected, right? They're a rebuilding team. So I don't think anyone's surprised to hear those numbers.
I'm not gonna lie. I am a little bit, just because you said they're the worst in the league at scoring, and I mean, San Jose was pretty bad last year, and they had Connor Bedard, so it's kind of surprising to hear that they scored less goals than the Sharks. Like that's.
I know. We obviously we haven't covered the Sharks yet. They will be coming. I will quickly pull up what their goals for was. I believe it was relatively close. What did I say? Chicago had shit. I just lost it. Chicago, they had 179.
179.
Yeah, so it was close. San Jose was 181, and that's 31st. So two more goals for the Sharks. But I mean, like you look at their roster, right? Like Bedard, 22 goals, 61 points. That was in 68 games. Next, Philip Kurashev, 18 goals, 54 points. And then it was a big drop. It drops down to Nick Foligno, 17 goals, 37 points.
It's not great.
It wasn't great, and again,
it wasn't expected to be.
To be expected, right? It was kind of a year where, you get Bedard, that you go out and get Taylor Hall to play with Bedard. Obviously, Taylor Hall only plays 10 games. Yeah, I mean, they brought in Corey Perry again. He only played 16. So kind of really they're two big additions. Last offseason, neither really played. Like, you got to combine 26 games out of the two of them, and that's what Chicago wanted. In terms of their additions, just because they got Bedard, they weren't immediately ready to, go out and grab a bunch of big name free agents. They knew, hey, we need to just, Bedard's going to figure it out. He's going to be our guy, but you need another top draft pick, just to kind of fill out your prospect pool a bit more. And it worked out really well for them. And that's kind of why, we've now seen, especially in this offseason, they went out and they brought in a lot of players. They brought in quite a few that are definitely going to make quite, I don't want to say a massive impact, but
compared to last year,
the presence is going to be felt from quite a few of these guys, most definitely.
that goals for number is definitely going to go up
Oh,
from, what
it's
was it, 179? Like
1 179. Yeah.
they're probably at least going to hit 200 this year, which,
They
last year
have to.
last year the Blue Jackets were in 25th in the league, so 7 from the bottom, and they had 234. So like
Even without
even
their
even
additions,
bad teams are scoring more than.
I think even not even including their additions, I think they will just because alone. Like, yeah, if Taylor Hall can play a full season, you're going to be getting 21 goals out of him
Yeah.
at least, and then not to mention how many other on the power play and whatnot. Like they're they're going to be over 200. Like there's no doubting that. Um, even San Jose, I expect both of them to their
Yeah.
offensive numbers to drastically improve. Um, Based on last season, but
Yeah, I think we've
it
already seen the worst seasons from most of the teams that are near the bottom of the league right now. Like,
yeah,
I think we've already seen the darkest parts of the Blackhawks rebuild, the Sharks, Columbus,
yeah,
Anaheim. Like, they're not going to be playoff contenders yet, but they're it's only up from here at this point
yeah.
for them.
The rise is going to be starting for both for sure. Um, where were we at? Oh yeah, their additions.
Yes,
So most like all of these ones I'm about to list off, these are all July 1st, opening day of free agency. The Blackhawks came
they
out the
were
gates
busy.
early and they went hard. So starting off, Tyler Bertuzzi, 4-year deal. Teravainen, 3-year deal. So that's kind of their two big ones. Those are two really good additions to their top six. Don't know exactly where they fit in, but regardless, they're going to drastically improve the Blackhawks top six, like
Yeah, and I think
without a
I
doubt.
think a lot of that is insurance.
Yeah,
I think those three guys right at the top, Taylor Hall, Tyler Bertuzzi, Teuvo Teravainen, those are the guys who will be playing with Bedard this year.
yeah,
And you have three of them, which means if one of them goes down, you still have two guys that have at least top six level skill to play with Bedard, because Bedard's going to grow regardless. He's too talented not to. But if he's playing with Lucas Reichel and Craig Smith on the top line,
hmm
that's gonna make it take longer. You
Well,
need guys who can keep up with them.
it's not only insurance for you know guys to play with Bedard. Like obviously, it's nice knowing that you pick your combo of it, right? Between Hall, Terravine, and Bertuzzi to probably play with Bedard. But then it's also nice because you've got one of those other guys that you can move to your second line and can play with Philip Kurashev, who again, he's only 24 years old. He really kind of had his first breakout in the NHL last season. 75 games played, like 54 points. And, he was really kind of carrying the offensive weight for that team with Dickinson um, when Bedard went down. So, to have a little bit better line mates to go with Kurashev as well can go a long way for him as well, because that's another guy that I think is going to be a big part of this Blackhawks team as they, continue to build up and slowly work their way back to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think they're very happy that he is an RFA at the end of this year, because I think there's a reason we haven't seen an extension with him. I think I think they want to wait. Like Tyler Bertuzzi, I assume he wasn't taking anything less than 4 years, and he would have had offers from other teams. But I do think, other than that, like they don't want to sign anybody long term until they have Bedard locked in and they kind of know what the general cap structure will be, what the timeline's going to be. And I think July 1st is going to hit. They're at least hopefully going to have an extension in place for Bedard, and if they don't, they're going to work one out quickly, because they are not going to want to wait. And once that gets settled, then they'll be like, okay, now where does a guy like Kurashev fit in? Like,
No, I
he
think
might. I
Kurashev
don't.
will get signed for before him because you don't want to run because especially now after the shit St. Louis pulled and the fact that more GMs are talking about offer sheets, like I don't think, especially because like it's not like Chicago's
But they
in
don't have
cap
anything to
hell
lose.
anymore.
They don't have anything to lose there. Like what? So what if somebody offer sheets them? Then you accept it because they offered a contract. Like
Yeah, but then you're
either they
forced to
offer
pay
a
Kershev something that maybe you could have got him on a cheaper deal. Like if you could get him on a 2-year bridge deal or something at 3.5 mil or something, but then a team comes out of the gate and offer sheets some, you know, 4.5 to 5 mil for 4 years or something, then because again, like I don't see Kershev getting a long-term deal, and it's not like Kershev's deal is going to, break the bank or anything when it comes to Bedard, right? Like Taylor Hall, his 6 mil's coming off the books this year. Athanasiou, his 4.25, Donato's 2 mil, Pat Maroon's 1.3, Craig Smith's 1 mil, Alec Martinez's 4 mil. Like
yeah, they've got very
they're gonna
few
have a lot of
contracts that are
money
long
open.
term, and none of them are that expensive. Like they have the Seth Jones contract. That goes until the summer of
The end of
2030.
time. Like yeah.
That's a lot at 9.5 mil for Seth Jones, who is still a good defenseman. Like he's still a
Yeah.
very solid defenseman. I think a lot of people, him and who's the fella in Edmonton, Darnell Nurse. A lot of people are like, these guys aren't very good. They're still good defensemen. They're just way overpaid.
Yeah, it's just their contracts
Jones
are
less
bad.
so. He's
Yeah.
less overpaid. But
Yeah. And not to mention you
Alex
also got
Vlasic for 6 years as well.
yeah, and you got 3.16 coming off the books in dead cap. So they'll be fine, whether it's an extension for Kershaw that happens sooner or something. I got to imagine something will get done before July 1st just because like there's no reason for them not to realistically. Because especially with like even
Yeah,
Bedard with his extension, it doesn't kick in until the following year.
yeah.
It
If I
does it
were them,
wouldn't
I'd
kick in
want
until 2026. So,
True. Yeah, yeah.
but really
Like
Kershaw's like the main guy that, they got to get signed at some point. The rest is not an area of
yeah,
concern for
yeah. And he is
the
an
Blackhawks.
RFA, so it's not like a huge squeeze. Like I don't think teams are going to be lining up for him day one to offer sheet, but it is something it's the area of most concern, which
Hey,
is a
we
good
also
problem
didn't
to
think
have
anyone
because
was
it's not
gonna
that bad.
we didn't think anyone was gonna offer sheet Philip Broberg, and look at the fat deal he got.
Yeah, but this isn't a Stamkos situation where this is looming over the team going into the season.
No,
Um,
absolutely not.
I think they should get a 2-year extension or something like that done. Try give it a couple, just do a little bridge deal. See if was it a flash in the pan? Do we know is he going to be good long term? And then maybe after at the end of that you can look
Then
into something long
then you
term.
exactly right. Yeah, because he doesn't have the track record of earning a long contract yet or anything. So
Yeah,
yeah, I assume he'll have to get a bridge deal and then work his
yeah.
you know
Maybe they'll wait till
work
December,
his way up. Yeah,
January. He has a good first half. All right, let's lock him in at a low number before it gets expensive. But
yeah. Continuing on with some of the other signings, again, these are all day one of free agency.
they made a lot.
Craig Smith signing a 1-year deal coming over from Dallas. Laurent Brossoit coming in to be a nice goaltending partner with Peter Mrazek. He signed a 2-year deal. Alec Martinez and Pat Maroon both signing 1-year deals. And TJ Brody on a 2-year deal. And really, other than that, like their only other major sign, like they did sign Vanacker, but again, I don't expect him to be playing in the lineup this season, as well as
Yeah.
Artem Levshinov, second overall pick this year. I'm gonna ask you. I've got a very strong opinion on this, but I will ask you:
All right.
what should the Blackhawks do with Levshinov? And it's a case of in his instance because he was in the NCAA and is already signed now. So for him, it's either play in the NHL or the AHL is the only two options for him. What do you think the Blackhawks should do with Levshinov?
And the only two options with that contract are NHL or AHL time this year.
Yeah. That's the only two places he can play.
I think I really think it's one of those situations where you gotta play him in some preseason games. Where are you at? You know, if he looks like he can hang to any degree, play him 3, 4 games at the start of the season. And you know what? If they don't even have to be all in a row, pick teams that are fringe playoff teams or lower. Don't put him out there against Dallas, right? And
Mhm.
does he look horrible, out of place? Is he getting burned? If not, you might be able to squeeze him in with some sheltered minutes. Maybe you give him some power play time though, or something like that. Power play too, but if not, then it's kind of the exact opposite in the AHL, where now he's your workhorse in the AHL. He's playing 25, 26 minutes a night in the AHL. And he is the guy on that team.
Mhm.
Because it's really one of those situations that it's hard to tell until you've seen the guy play against some NHLers where they're at. Because some guys, they dominate the AHL and it doesn't translate at all. Some guys, they put up like 0.3 points per game in the AHL and they're phenomenal in the NHL. Like some guys, it's the opposite somehow. Don't even know
Yeah.
how that works, but it just does. So it really is like you gotta put him in there for some games. Hopefully they're not bad ones and see what happens. Um, I know a lot of people really are like they get very spooked by the idea of playing a guy too early. You don't want to stunt his growth by that, but I I almost think that's a little bit of a narrative. I think it does happen with a lot of players, but I think less players than people realize. I think I think
I
some
wouldn't
players
say
could
it's I
benefit
I get what you're
almost
saying.
from playing bigger minutes and
Mhm.
kind of almost one of those you throw them in the pool and it helps them swim kind of thing, which does not work for everyone,
I
but
wouldn't say
in
it
some
necessarily, like,
cases,
stunts their growth. I think it's more of, like, in a case like this, like, obviously, we know Chicago's not gonna be a good team again this year, like, they're probably
yeah,
still gonna be a bottom 5 team, lots of losses. Um, it's more so, I think, like, a confidence thing, and especially, again, being, like, a young player, like, 18 and going out there and just getting, like, shelled almost, like, you know,
yeah,
damn near every game. Right, and so I'm kind of on the side. I like the idea of, yeah, to start the season, get him a few games here and there, even if you wanna go up to, like 9 games and then send him down so you don't burn a year
yeah.
off his ELC,
Quite frankly, I
but
think they'd probably like to burn a year off his ELC. You know, if you think this guy is going to be that number 2 overall pick of the future, he's going to be that Duncan Keith of the next era. You probably want him on that 8-year deal as soon as possible. But who
yeah,
knows?
but the
Maybe
way
they
the
would like
market's
it.
going, like, you're gonna have to pay him either way. I think whether you burn the year off sooner or later, if he, hits in the NHL like where, like the expectations are for him.
Yeah,
But again, like, it's, he's only 18. He's just kinda getting his feet wet in the NHL, like, again, I think he's just better off, you just put him down in the AHL, let him run the power play down there, let him log some big minutes and just work on his game and develop rather than, you know, just getting shelled in the NHL every night. Like, we kinda saw that with, um, even a Kevin Korchinski a little bit. Just gonna quickly pull up.
yeah, and
So with
I
Korchinski, like he was a 7th overall pick in 2022, and Chicago didn't even give him a crack. They immediately, like, it was like after training camp is just go back to Seattle, and
yeah,
and he dominated, and they won the WHL playoffs that year. He got to go off to the Memorial Cup. He got to go play on. Um, uh, oh no, he play on Team Canada? No, he didn't. Did he? Yeah, he did. He was on Team Canada last year in the World Juniors. Um,
I
And then
think
last
yeah,
year and then the
yeah,
following year, they let him make the jump, and he played 76 games, and there was obviously still those, little growing pains, but it's a lot better than if, just right off the get-go, he was thrusted in, and so and again, it's not like Chicago's not trying to win, so I think you take your time with your prospects and just you take the slow and steady approach because, again, you're probably not in the
yeah,
playoffs for another 2 or 3 years at least.
yeah.
So, I don't see any point in rushing your players and just letting them develop a
See,
little more naturally,
that
especially as a defenseman as well.
yeah. So you made a lot of great points, and I agree with most of them. That last bit there, where you said that it would be rushing them, is where that's the kind of part that I meant is a little bit of a narrative because
But it's
like,
not though.
but
It's
not
100%
for
not.
not for yeah. But I'm not saying I'm not saying they should play that they should play uh Levshinov for the purpose of winning games. I'm saying he might be the kind of guy who develops faster getting shelled in the NHL than dominating the AHL because we have seen some players that as the competition's better, they play better and they will develop better that way. I think it's a lot more rare. I think
You'd
it's a
have to
lot
give me an
safer.
example though of an 18-year-old defenseman though.
Yeah, and
Because like
that
I view it very differently between forwards and defensemen
yeah, and goalies as well.
is a
Like
big thing.
it's very
Goalies is
different.
goalies is a completely different that goalies are a totally different thing for sure.
I mean, you might want to say that it's not fair because it's hard to compare him to other people, but what was Cale Makar doing before he decided to walk in and just be the best defenseman in the world when he got put in against or in the playoffs with the Avs, right? Like,
Yep, but how many years did Cale Makar take to develop after he was drafted? He went and played 2 years at UMass.
yeah, like
So he
it's
came in as a 20-year-old on
fair,
on a good Avs team as
a
well.
good Avs team,
Like an
yeah,
Avs team that was well, I guess not good because like they did go in as kind of the 8 seed, like the second wild card, but I mean they did win. Like they did
yeah,
win in the first round.
yeah.
Um,
I
but again, it was
definitely
like
don't have
like Cale
examples,
Makar
but
took
there
2
are.
years to
That's true. He
before
didn't
coming
come right
up.
in, but I do think there are some guys that do genuinely benefit from being put in that limelight
Oh,
faster.
and I
But
don't doubt that.
and that's why I'm saying they need to do the testing games first, and also just not
Mhm.
even on ice testing. Just talk with them. Like, what kind of guy is he? A guy like Crosby. If Crosby was a defenseman, you would still want to play him the instant you draft him, even if he's only as good as your healthy scratches. Like, because that's the drive that he has.
Crosby was also a generational
But
player, though.
but that's what I'm saying.
No, I know.
Not
I
even a
get
guy
what
with
you're
his
saying.
skill, a guy with
No,
his
I get you
drive and
though,
love to improve.
and I'm right there with
And
you. Like
and I
I
have
totally
I
think
know almost nothing about Levshinov or Korchinski or how he did or Makar, but you
no, and
know,
I'm right there with you. I think like 100% they should take the route, like
yeah,
because you did sign him. So I think you're
you got to at least see what
doing
he
a
can do.
disservice to not give him those few games at the start of the season.
I
And
do
then yeah, I mean
wonder how many
for all
teams.
we know, he could play 9 games and light it up, and then you keep him, or you could see
Yeah,
those few areas of concern. Like immediately off the rip, I think he's better suited to get his few tryout games and then just go and be that guy in the
perfect.
AHL and
Yeah, get used to
log
being
some
a
bigger minutes,
number
instead
one
of
guy.
playing probably
Yeah,
15, 16 minutes a night in the NHL, go play, 22, 23 uh in the AHL, work the power play but again, if he goes in there day 1 of regular season and is looking great
undeniable.
and he's not showing any faults or reason to send him down, then yeah, by all means I think then he 100% should play in the NHL. But off the rip, my initial reaction is probably you know
Yeah,
AHL. But again, he went second overall, so he could definitely surprise myself and a lot of other people.
I think the vast majority of players, it is better to play that long game, let them develop as long as possible, wait until the last moment, and then bring them up. Um, I do wonder how much these teams and like coaching staff specifically, talk with these players like on their off days, and they're like asking them, how do you feel about this? Like, do they ever ask these guys like, do you want to come up, or is it just kind of the guy just puts his hands up and he's like, I don't know what's happening. I just got signed a contract and play hockey. Or does he actually know, like, they're thinking about bringing me up? Maybe they'll bring me up. Now they are. Like, I wonder how much they're kept in the loop. It'd be very interesting to
I think
know.
they're kept in the loop, but I would find it hard to believe if a team was like asking their players like, "Do you want to play in the NHL?" Right? I think like then
Not even like handing
you're
them the
kind of
keys to
putting
do
your
it, just like asking them, like, you know, give him his 6 game tryout and be like, what do you think? What would be best? Do you have an opinion on how you'd best develop? Like, I wonder if they even ask him because like it feels like so obvious that they should, but then we hear these stories about like how many stories last year alone did we hear about guys getting traded and then like finding out on Twitter or something, right? Like I've these
yeah.
it feels like there's a lot of communication until you hear stories and it's like,
I think it's different
does
with
anybody
rookies
talk?
though, especially because like you got to
Especially the
think
high
about
end
it.
rookies.
I'm pretty sure it works the same as like with two-way deals with rookies. Like you're making your full amount in uh you know in the NHL,
AHL
whereas
or
you're not
NHL.
making the same in the AHL. So like
Oh, you don't in the AHL. I thought you did on your ELC.
I don't believe so. No, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure you make a reduced amount in the AHL.
I mean, I don't doubt it. Gary Bettman
Um,
signed that CBA, so
but again, it's all just kind of up in the air. I fully do expect him to play some games at the start of the season, but uh,
yeah. Couple at the
we'll wait till
start,
day
couple
one
at
of
the end.
regular season and see what happens. But
Yeah.
before moving to the lines, just kind of looking at Chicago's just overall situation, they do have 5.9 in cap space available at the moment. Holy shit, do they have draft picks stocked up?
they
Uh,
got they got a couple.
two first rounders this season, they have their own in Toronto's. Two second rounders, they have their own in Dallas's. No thirds, a couple fourths, and they have a sixth and a seventh. 2026, they have their own first round pick. Second round picks, they have their own pick, the Islanders and Toronto's. And then they've got all their own picks following in that year, as well as Ottawa's four. So they have lots of pieces there. Whether they plan on using all of those pieces, we did see them make a couple trades to move up at the draft this past year, or maybe there's a player that becomes available, and they see that if it's a relatively younger player, someone they can see being part of what they're building, they might use one of these pieces to go and get them. So lots of options for Chicago
Yeah.
going into this year.
Are you
New
moving on to the?
captain Nick
Oh, I thought you were
Foligno.
moving on to the lineup. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I think so. I think that kind of covers all the other bases.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if it sounds like we're talking about their rookies a lot more than other teams, it's because we are, and that's kind of the team at the
All they
moment.
have, like
Like,
they're
yeah, like we
a
said, they're not
rebuilding
looking.
team.
No, no fan cares about how many points they get this year. They care about their position because they want a better draft pick again, probably. But
Yeah,
I don't think anybody has playoff aspirations outside of probably Bedard himself.
yeah.
So
Well, and really, last year the NHL had like, in my opinion, four bad teams like that are shit deep in the midst of rebuilds, and it's just a losing culture, right? We did Anaheim uh, quite a bit ago. We're doing Chicago now, and we still have Columbus and San Jose to do. So, like, out of the four really bad shit rebuilding teams, this is only the second one we're doing.
yeah,
So a little bit of change of pace. Before the lines, I just want to quickly put out that again, daily face-off. These projected lines do not include um, Lev Shinov or Frank Nazar, who again is another guy that I think is going to get a good crack at the start of the season.
do you think he
Could
plays?
benefit from some AHL time. I think he's ready.
He's 20
Um,
years old.
the I think the Blackhawks would have to try and find, you got to find a spot that works for him, not just playing him for the sake of playing him.
Yeah,
Like you're doing him a disservice by being like, yeah, you're going to play, but you know, fourth line and no special teams. Like you're not doing him any favors um, by doing that. He did sign after the season wrapped up, where he played over with University of Michigan. got 3 games at the end of the regular season. He had 1 goal, was a -4, but again, bad Chicago team. So
No,
I think
yeah,
he's ready, but
yeah,
again,
13th
we kind of got to
overall.
see those first
Like,
few games to determine that.
yeah, point per game last year at University of Michigan is pretty solid. Like, yeah, I think they at least have to give him those games to try it. I think he's a lot more likely to make the opening night roster than Levshinov, but
Yeah,
I could see them going either way with him, whether they you know want to develop him a little bit more, or maybe bringing him up halfway through the year or something. But
yeah, yeah. Totally agree. And when we break down this roster, there's a few more holes open in the forward that he could maybe slot in. Whereas their defensemen, there's not as many open spots right now. Um, but starting off with the first forward line they have Taylor Hall and Tyler Bertuzzi on the wings, centered by none other than Connor Bedard. It's Bedard's team again. Foligno is the captain, but we know that Bedard is still the face of this team. He is the future.
yeah,
This is still his team. Um, and I like it. Hall and Bertuzzi, I think, is great complementary pieces to put alongside of him right now.
yeah, I think given what was out there, it was some of the best option. I do wonder if a team like Chicago had took any looks at like Stamkos or something, just to just to be like Nick Foligno style, just like teaching Bedard the tricks of the trade and how to be a player, how to be a captain as well. Like,
Hmm.
and there's a couple other guys like that they could have looked at in free agency, but like we said, the majority of this team they brought in was in free agency, so
Yeah,
they got a lot of their guys. They didn't. They kind of went that route more last off season where they brought in Perry, Foligno, a lot of much older guys versus some guys that are Taylor Hall, Bertuzzi. They're veterans, but they're not old. They've still got quite a few years in the league. So
yeah, yeah.
so I mean, as far it's hard to judge it because they're not trying to win too hard, but
It's a definitely
it's
an
not a bad first
improvement from
line.
last year. It's a
Yeah,
much improvement. Looking at their second line, Lucas Reichel and Toivo Teravainen on the wing, centered by Philip Kurashev. I mean, I guess this works good for Kurashev, getting Teravainen now in there with him, giving him a little bit more of an established NHL presence and a little more skill on the one side with him. Lucas Reichel, like I'm not crazy about on the second line, honestly. Didn't really have the greatest season last year. Again, young player, former first round pick, but you'd
yeah,
kind of hope at this point now, like drafted in 2020, like 22 years old now, you'd kind of like to see him take that next step or have already taken it.
yeah.
Um,
I like to give a pass to a lot of the guys in that 2020 or 2021 draft, just because obviously the COVID years
oh,
and
most definitely, yeah.
it messed with things, and hopefully
You
he
you,
still
you have
reaches the
to.
ceiling that they think he can. And I mean, Kurashev looked good last year. We know what Teravainen can do. This is putting him in a spot to succeed. So if he doesn't really this year, it's kind of hard to be too hopeful going forward if it
It is
doesn't work
it,
because he's
it
put
is
in a good
worth
spot.
noting though with Reichel, again, during those couple of drafts with COVID and whatnot, he was playing over in Germany and he got his seasoning in. Like he wasn't really affected, like 42 games and then 38. So he was still getting lots of playing time. Like it was really a big chunk of it was a lot of uh the players in the CHL, right? Because I think the WHL had that really, really shortened season.
Yeah,
I believe it was the OHL just didn't have a season in its entirety. They went a whole year without playing. Um, but again, with Reichel, like this could be the year he takes off, especially playing with guys like Kershev and Teravainen. Could be the missing pieces to help him unlock that potential to hit the next level. But again, like you've got other guys. Frank Nazar could slot in there. You do still have Nick Foligno, Jason Dickinson. Even I think is more than worthy of logging top 6 minutes after last year. So the good part is you have options now that you didn't even have close to last year.
Yeah, like honestly, Foligno, Dickinson, Mikheyev as a third line. That's like that.
That's not bad. Like
That's not bad.
it's not elite or anything, but like it's a solid third line still though.
I wouldn't be shocked if there's an injury anywhere on that second line. I wouldn't be shocked seeing these guys on that second line. Like I wouldn't be like,
Yeah.
oh man, they're in trouble now. They had to move him up. Like
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like third line of Foligno, Dickinson, Mikheyev is solid. I'm not crazy on Mikheyev exactly. Obviously joined the team as a cap dump from Vancouver, but and then even your fourth line, like Andreas Athanasiou and Craig Smith with Ryan Donato down the middle, like again, it's a solid fourth line. Like it's nothing elite by any means, but like it's a fourth line you can put out there and trust at least, or have more trust in than you would have had last year with your fourth line.
is it a great fourth line? No. Is it an NHL caliber fourth line? I would say yes. Last
Yeah.
year, their fourth line was not NHL caliber. I would have to look at the roster, but I don't even know how much their third line was. Like, so this this feels a lot better. Like, it's
Yeah.
obviously not a winning team, but the pieces are starting to fall in place. You can see it. You got to kind of zoom out a bit, but it works.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
this is absolutely not a talking point we need to touch on, but I've been staring at this too long not to bring it up. Have you ever noticed how freaking weird the sevens look on their jerseys? Since we're on Daily Faceoff looking at them,
Yeah.
somebody hit the seven over the head with a wrench, and it is all dented on the one side. I've never noticed that looking at a Blackhawks jersey before.
Yeah, it is kind of odd, isn't it, actually? Yeah, now I didn't even really notice it, but now that you point out, I'm like, yeah, I can't unsee that. Like,
Like all their other numbers look fine. It's literally just the sevens.
just the sevens, yeah.
It's just I've just been staring at it. It's just is doing something to me. I don't appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll try not to focus on too much, but we do have a couple more
Uh,
sevens
Look at that
on
big 98
on the uh on the defense. First pair, again, two guys we talked about earlier, Alex Vlasic and Seth Jones.
locked in for six apiece.
I
That's
mean, it's
so they got them
it,
both
it
for a
can
while.
work.
It
You know,
works
Seth
out.
Jones really isn't. I mean, he's not what he used to be. He's definitely not known for his defensive game. It's more of his offensive game. But on the flip side, Alex Vlasic is known for more of his defensive game rather than his offensive game. So I like the combination of those two still. I think it works.
Yeah, and honestly, Seth Jones is one of those guys. I think he's starting to get to the point where he's almost underrated. I think people are going in the opposite direction with it. Like he is
I kind of
not
like that actually, though. Yeah.
he is not what he once was and what he looked like he would be. You know, especially in his best years with Columbus. But you know, last year, like you said, the Blackhawks were bad, and I got to imagine Seth Jones played the most minutes out of everybody.
Oh yeah.
67 games. He was only a minus 15.
Yeah.
Like playing the minutes he did, I would not be shocked at all to see if he was like a minus 45. But
Yeah.
like, so minus 15 ain't actually too bad.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I actually really like that. Yeah, that he's because everybody's is so focused on his contract, and admittedly so, he doesn't
yeah,
play up to the level of that contract, but
yeah,
to now reverse it and be like, no, he's just bad. It's like, no, he's still a very solid, capable NHL defenseman. It's just the contract that's bad.
yeah. And
So I'm right
there's
there
a
with
lot
you.
of guys. There's a lot of guys in the league that kind of get talked like that. Like you know, if Jonathan Huberdeau was a free agent tomorrow, he would get paid. He would get some money. Like somebody would have to sign him for at least 5 mil a year. It's
Mhm.
just he's making way more than that, so he looks bad. But like
Yeah,
when some people look at the cap hit that's more than it should be, they're like, oh, they treat him like they're not an NHL player. And it's like I don't know.
exactly. That's exactly it, right?
It's hard to blame a
Um,
guy for getting the most money he can while he's got his playing career going.
yeah, 100%. And not only that, also Chicago traded for Seth Jones and immediately
Yeah.
gave him that extension as they were kind of like kickstarting their rebuild.
Oh, they gave him the extension.
Yeah,
For
yeah, it's right
for
when
some
they
reason,
got him from Columbus.
for some reason I thought he like just signed it with Columbus and then they moved him.
No, no,
Huh?
yeah, it was part of the deal when he came over. But moving on to the second pair, I I actually like this pairing. It's very similar, kind of what we talked about with the first pair. Kevin Korchinski with Connor Murphy. Again, Korchinski is a young, more offensive minded defenseman. I would say he's still good in his own end, but you know, when you think about Korchinski, it's more so for kind of his offensive game as a defenseman. Whereas again, Connor Murphy is known for just being, his whole career throughout his time with the Coyotes and now the Blackhawks is being a solid defensive defenseman. So
Yeah.
putting those two together, it's the perfect veteran, I think, to put Korchinski with. And to allow him
Yeah.
to just play his game and excel in the areas that he excels at.
Yeah. I'm not incredibly familiar with Korchinski's game. Is there like a, you know, not even like skill wise, just like a comparable you can give on like how much he is
Oh,
offense to two-way? Like, is he all the way on the level of like an Adam Fox or a Roman Yossi, or is he closer to like, a Hedman or a type deal or something like that?
um, hmm. It's actually a really good question. Um,
Because like I feel like I've heard that, he's, you know, good defensively. Like he's not a power play merchant who that's like going to be his only role.
yeah, no, 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 no. Um, off the top of my head, like I really can't think of an exact one that like fits the. Yeah, yeah,
Mackenzie
yeah.
Weegar. I'm just throwing out defenseman names. I don't know if they fit.
Uyghur's actually not even a terrible one in my opinion. Like Uyghur's, I don't know if you actually kind of thought that or you're just throwing names out like you said, but like no,
I'm trying to
like
think of guys that are kind of in the middle of two-way and offensive defenseman.
hmm
He's kind of because like Weegar's the kind of guy you could label as either, and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like he plays good defensively, but also he just dropped like 20 goals. So
yeah. Yeah, I don't even hate the Uyghur comparison. Like obviously Korchinski is is quite a bit bigger. Like he's 6'3", but yeah, in terms of it,
it's a
like
big
I think
boy.
he can play a solid offensive game and like obviously help out on the power play and whatnot. But like a good two-way game, yeah.
Nice.
Like
Well, they
he's
got
gonna be
some
a
stuff to
special
look forward to.
player for the Blackhawks, no doubt. As part of their future, especially Korchinski on the left side, Levshinov's a righty. Like, if that's your top pair in the future, I like that a lot for Chicago.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
very nice top pair.
It's interesting
Um,
seeing some teams that they love going the route of like having all their best defensemen on the left or the right and kind of spreading it out versus some teams like, they want that 1-2 on that top pairing and then they just run that for 28 minutes a night
mhm.
and they just get as much value out of both of those really skilled players as they can because both
Yeah,
can work. We've seen it plenty of times for both ways,
yeah,
but it's
yeah,
interesting to see how teams
100%.
draft for it.
Um, so we're talking about a potential future young stud pair in the league. Let's talk about Chicago's third pair, now featuring the two veterans on the blue line that they brought in, Alec Martinez and TJ Brody. I mean, it's good veteran presence. I think it's not gonna hurt them if they go out there and they play 14, 15, 16 minutes a night. I don't think they're gonna hurt you, and they're great pieces to have in there for, your young guys, whether they're forwards or defensemen, like, they're great veterans of the game, so I think the young guys could learn a lot from both those 2.
Yeah, it's a fine pair that they because they didn't Did they sign Brody or did they?
Yeah, yeah. No, they signed both in free agency.
Oh, I thought they traded for at least Brody because they just got so many of
No,
the Leafs picks in the next 2 years. But
no. All the Leafs ones is the Jake McCabe one.
both of them are from Jake McCabe.
Yeah, because remember they retained half, and
Ooh.
Jake McCabe still had a couple years left.
Oh yeah, I guess that's
So
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah,
but overall,
good.
it's not a bad core for their defensemen. Again, it's only going to get better over time. So you know, if it's bad right now, that's fine because again, like it's right where Chicago needs to be right now, as it's again part of the rebuild process.
They just need
Um,
to worry about building up their young guys and keeping Seth Jones sharp enough that he doesn't bring the team down with his cap hit too
yeah,
much. Like if as long as you can keep him at a top four defenseman level for the next 5 years of this 6 year contract, then I think you're good. Like
yeah,
you just need him to be good enough. He doesn't even
yeah,
have to stay as your number one or two defenseman.
mhm. Yeah, 100%. And then that leaves us with the goalies. Pretty good goaltending tandem, actually.
Really
Peter
solid.
Mrazek and Laurent Brossoit. I know Brossoit is kind of dealing with a bit of an injury right now. I think he's going to miss kind of just the start of the season, but when he's healthy, when he comes in, like goaltending isn't going to be the thing that hurt Chicago, right? Like, whereas if it wasn't
I
Mrazek last season, you kind of knew Chicago was going to lose. Really,
and
the only time they ever had a chance to win was Mrazek in net. So now having two capable goalies is definitely going to be an improvement for them.
yeah, and that's you laid it out perfectly for the opposite reason that I was thinking. Um, I would say goaltending is going to kill him this year, like it did last year, because their goalies are too good for this rebuilding squad. They're going to steal him a couple too many games, and they're going to be picking fourth instead of second or first. Uh, the best way to win games when you don't have a good team is to just goalie the other team. And you can't
Mhm.
will that to happen every game. Peter Mrazek did it a weird amount of times. Like
Yeah. Oh,
if they
100% he did. Yeah.
if they went out and got a bum crusty McGlovin blocker, like
Love that name.
instead of Peter Mrazek, like they they could have been real close to San Jose for that bottom spot.
Yeah.
Like I think the goaltending it's going to be good, and that's I mean it's hard to complain about that, but I think they're going to I think the coaches will be happy. I think management might look and be like, it'd be nice to be a couple more spots down.
I
But,
mean, I mean, yeah, but like at this point now, like when you've got Bedard, it is now trying to rise and kind of build this team up. Like
that's fair. They do
you
have
don't
quite
want
a
to spend
few
like the first two
firsts.
or three, and that's the thing, right? Is like Chicago had already kind of been in their, you know, their worst years. I think even kind of prior to getting Bedard, right? And so now that you get Bedard, now you don't want to be like, spending the first, you know, 2, 3, potentially even 4 years of his career, like just being a shit team at the bottom and just trying to get more top end picks. Like you've already got lots of good young prospects. You got Bedard at 1 the previous year. You got Lev Shinov at 2. You're probably still picking top 5 in this year, and then like that's I think when you got to start
Yeah.
really putting the piece together now to build this team up.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair. And they could be picking, still top 20-ish with the Maple Leafs first rounder as well. So,
yeah, yeah, but I do agree with you. I think Chicago probably actually does end up with the number 1 overall pick in this past year if it wasn't for Mrazek.
yeah, I mean
I will
they finished
definitely give you
5
that.
points. They finished 5 points above the San Jose Sharks last year, 52 points to 47 for the Sharks. And I mean, Mrazek had pretty solid stats last year, so I definitely think,
But
you
counter
know,
argument, San Jose is probably 15 points below Chicago if not for Mackenzie Blackwood.
You know what? Fair. He stole them quite a couple
Like
as well.
he's a big reason why the Sharks weren't like the worst team in NHL history. Realistically, like they were bad last year.
Yeah.
Um, but
Last
that
year,
does,
Peter Mrazek had a 907 save percentage last year
yeah,
on the
like
Blackhawks in
yeah,
56 games.
and
That's
again, that's the team we were talking about that
yeah,
was 29th in the league for goals against.
yeah,
Like only
and
three
yeah,
teams allowed more goals than them, and their goalie put up an above 900 save percentage. Like that's
907, a decent amount higher. That's
it's quite impressive. He had a really good year last year.
yeah. I'm glad he's getting paid there in Chicago. He's making four and a quarter mil for the next 2 years, and he's
Yeah,
earned it because he's kind of been a patch up goalie or a backup they bring in to kind of help out other teams, but he keeps bouncing around. He's never really had a forever home in the league for long. So it's
yeah.
it's nice to see him at least get a decent payday because he's been very solid everywhere he's gone.
Couldn't agree with you more there. But that does wrap up everything covering the Chicago Blackhawks. All that's left, you know what it is. Braden, I'm going to hit you with it. Does Chicago make the playoffs?
No, they don't.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you. Like it's and again, there's no expectation for them to, right?
No,
Like even if they finished the seventh worst team in the league, like that's huge for them. If they finish fifth worst, like that's huge. It's just now about improving each year and slowly building this team up to the point where you're hoping in, you know, maybe 2, probably 3 years, you're fighting at least for a playoff spot. You're in that contention and you're maybe sneaking in. Like that's where Chicago's at now. They're doing it the right way. Um, but yeah, playoffs are not it's just not an option for them this year.
no.
And the only other question left, one player, one individual award. Who you got? Out of this team, who do
This
you
is
got?
very this is very tough. There is
I
there's a
can't
couple
talk
of
to be
guys
serious.
there's a couple of guys that we could already that we've already talked about that are rookies that could come in and win the Calder if they're given a chance. Um, Other than that, there's about two options, and I got to imagine you're going to go with the other one, so I'm going to go with my pick. I am going to go with Peter Mrazek for the Hart Trophy. If this team makes the playoffs, Peter Mrazek will be given the world.
That's wow. That's not even Vesna, just straight up Hart Trophy.
If he's good enough to win the Vezina, he might as well win the Hart on this team. Like
That is true. Yeah.
if he's good
Yeah.
enough to win the Vezina, it's like he did it on that team. Like
Yeah.
might as well.
Yeah. And again, with this one, I'm just gonna take the simple pick, just the basic bitch answer. Pick anything you want for Bedard. I'll go with the Hart as well. Just because I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure he's at the point yet where he's winning Art Ross, Rocket Richard. But
I would
again,
I would think it
if
might be more likely for him to win the Rocket than the Hart
it's,
or the
I
Art
think the
Ross.
Rocket,
He's got a wicked shot,
yeah,
but it's
and
it's
with the
so
pieces
hard to win
around
any
him,
of them.
like he's probably tucking 35, 40 at least if he plays a full healthy year, and other guys
His
can stay
his line
healthy.
mates do
Like
as well. Yeah.
he's got the pieces around him. He's got the skill. He's another year experienced and whatnot. So yeah, Rocket would be more likely than the Art Ross, but I'll just go with the Hart because again,
Yeah.
if for somehow they make the playoffs and Bedard, if he drops like 40 goals and he's up near 100 points, I could see him getting it, but
Yeah.
really, I
If
don't see anyone on this team actually winning
no.
any significant trophies this year. So
No. The only way it happens is if they make the playoffs, then they might get consideration, and if they do, it's either on the back of Connor Bedard or Peter Mrazek, or who knows, maybe Laurent Brossoit jumps in the net and decides to
yeah,
drop 20 shutouts in a season or something.
yeah, honestly, very well could happen. Like
Because like that's kind of what it would take.
you never quite know.
That would be pretty funny looking back at the Hart Trophy winners in the last 10 years, and you're looking at Kucherov, McDavid, McKinnon, Peter
Yeah.
Mrazek.
Yeah.
That would be one for the record books.
Yeah. But that does wrap up everything covering the Chicago Blackhawks. Wish them best of luck in, again, what's going to be a tough season, but it's all worth it. And you get to watch Bedard. So, really, if you're complaining,
Yeah.
literally no one's sympathizing with you. Well, it's true, right? Like, you get to watch Bedard. Like, that's...
No, they got a dynasty through the 2010s, and now they have Bedard. Nobody should feel sympathy for this team in the slightest. Like,
that's also a good point. Yeah,
they could. They're in a couple of years. They're going to be where I am. They're going to be where Detroit is, and I'm going to be saying the same thing I'm saying about them. Where, yeah, okay, they're coming out of it, but they could be bad for one more year. They had it good for a long time.
They did good for so long. Like, you can suck one more year.
Yeah, you just had 3 cups in the last 15 years.
Yeah, right.
Lose a little bit more.
But moving from a very bad team up to a team that's been pretty good the last couple years, the Colorado Avalanche.
Pretty damn good team. You are correct there. Going from the team who scored the least amount of goals last year in the Blackhawks to the team that scored the most goals in the NHL last year. The Avalanche scored 302 goals in the regular season last year, the only team to surpass 300 goals.
Really? They had the most goals out of any team?
Yeah. Yep. The Maple Leafs were second with 298, so they were only 4 ahead, but they were... Yeah.
They were the top dogs.
They were the top dogs. 10 more goals than the Oilers, and they're first, and even down to 6th place is already down at 279. So that's what is that, 23 less goals?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they got a lot of tucks last year, but
and that's what they're known for. They're not known for being
they're known for their offensive
shutdown team. Like, it's when you're talking about the Avs, it's talking about all these point totals. The players are putting up all these goals and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's a lot of top heavy scoring as well, because they're, as far as points go, their top scorers last year, Nathan McKinnon, obviously the Hart Trophy and Ted Lindsay Trophy winner, 140 points last year, absolutely insane. Mikko Rantanen, 104 points. Cale Makar on the blue line with 90 points, 21 goals as well. 56 points from Drouin in a nice bounce back year. 53 from Nichushkin, but he did that in 54 games, so he was about a point per game with 28 goals. They got a lot of scoring from their top guys, because after that it starts dropping off pretty quick.
Yeah.
So
and that's what it is. Yeah, it's a very top heavy team.
But it's worked for a couple of years, and unless the cap really comes for him, it doesn't look like they're going to have to change too much about it, because all those guys I just listed, 28 years old, 27, 25, 28, 28, 29, 27, 28, 28. You have to get down all the way to Josh Manson when you sort by scoring to get to somebody who's in their 30s, and he's 32. You have to go quite a ways down for somebody to really be old, and that's not even that old, right? So they could potentially keep a lot of their main guys around for 5 or 6 more years, as long as the cap doesn't take it away.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, all without their captain, Gabriel Landeskog, who looks poised to come back sometime this year. Do we have an update on that? Do we really know?
I don't even know if he's honestly been skating yet, to be honest with you.
We'll quickly check that here.
Let me do some digging here,
before
seeing
going.
if there's been any updates with him.
Yeah. I know there was at some point in this past offseason. Maybe you'll be able to find it here,
the Avalanche are still unsure for when Landeskog and Lehkonen will return. Lehkonen obviously coming off the shoulder surgery,
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it doesn't sound like there's really any timeline
Yeah.
for Landy coming back.
Yeah. And he's been out for 3 years now, so I gotta imagine it's
2.
tough to put a timeline on it. Or for 2 years, sorry. So
Last 2 seasons, yeah.
yeah, this would be his third year um since then. But yeah, I mean, he's been out for so long, but he's like such a great leader and a great captain for that team. I think having him back will be huge when he does.
Yeah.
I do believe there was an update at some point in the offseason that he kind of said it was more like it's gotten to the point where they kind of know now that it is an when he comes back, not an if. Because for a while there, it was like, we don't know if he's ever going to play again. And
Yeah.
like a lot of people were pretty convinced, like, it looks like he won't. And that was
What
pretty
people do
brutal.
need to
So,
understand, though, is it assuming most likely based on the nature of this injury and, the extent and the process, like, he's had to go through with it and how much time he's missed, like, Gabriel Landeskog returning isn't going to be the Landeskog that most likely, at least, isn't gonna be the Landeskog that was previously with the Avs. Like, I really
no.
don't expect we're gonna get the same player. So, to what extent do you get him on the ice from what he was before? I don't know. But regardless of that, yeah, immediately right away, like the impact he has in the locker room, like as a leader, is like you can't question that, and that's going to be huge for the Avs in itself, right there. Just getting him back in the locker room around the boys and part of the team.
Yeah. And, especially if they can get Nichushkin back to be in on that first line, and then Landeskog like on the second line or third line, even if he does regress a bit, like I assume even if he's not back to what he was fully, if he can even be half that guy and the leader they need him to be,
Mhm.
he's going to be worth that 7 mil cap hit for a good bit there, especially with the cap going up. Like, he was one of the youngest captains in NHL history back when they gave him the C. Uh, like he's a huge part of that team, and luckily the cap hit isn't too bad. It might put him in a bit of a bind. Right now they are listed at having minus 3.7 mil in cap space. So they're I think they're gonna have to make some moves, but
Oh,
that
I
might not be
I
counting it.
assume so. Like if Landeskog and Nichushkin and Lehkonen, like I think if once all 3 are back, I think yeah, they're probably gonna be over the cap. So that's yeah, something they're gonna have to figure out at some point.
Yeah, and that may be where they have to move maybe one of those guys, maybe someone else. It's really hard to tell. Like if Nichushkin comes back, what do you think they do? Do you think they do they just risk it? Like it's 2 years in a row where off ice stuff where he did some bad stuff and it
Not only
caused
that,
some
it's
issues.
it's in the playoffs too.
Yeah, like can can you risk that? Are you saving 6.125 mil in cap space? Are you like marking that for him
Well, I
on
mean,
the
you have
chance
to.
that he's not gonna screw it up? Like,
You have to though, and I think the way it is, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty certain that like the Avs have already said like the door's open for him once he's eligible to return, which
yeah,
again is kind of around that mid to late November we'll probably see him. Um but I believe now because of the nature of where he's at in the player assistance program, I think if a certain situation happens like what's happened the last couple years happens again, then I think the Avs are in a position where they can terminate his contract.
yeah, yeah. That'll be his third strike
So,
on the system.
but again, like they've already said the door's open for him to come back. Hopefully, he's learned his lesson, and like if he has, like again, he's locked up on a long term deal, only a little bit over 6 mil. Like the numbers we saw him put up in the regular season this last year in the shortened amount of games he played, what he was doing in the playoffs prior to the whole situation that in the second round, like
I,
he's a
I'll
good
look at
player and
the
he's well worth what he's making. So
absolutely
it's
like
again, it really comes down to is he coming back just ready to just help this team win again, or is this off ice stuff going to kind of just
He has to overcome his
keep
own
happening?
demons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's the
it's so
biggest
weird
thing.
to talk about him like that because like I look at his regular season stats and that's what I take into account because
Yeah,
I find it disingenuous to take the playoff stats because he failed a drug test in the playoffs. He was probably playing on, on drugs that probably helped him more than they hurt, right? So like, I'm I'm surprised that wasn't a huge story. I'm surprised like Winnipeg wasn't screaming at the top of their lungs like this guy was doing drugs and dropped what do you do like 9 goals in 8 games or something?
see,
Like I would
I
be furious if I got eliminated by a guy playing like that and then it found
yeah,
out
but
that he failed a drug
in
test. Like,
in most cases, yes, and I love Winnipeg, but even without Nichushkin, like
oh,
Winnipeg was getting dog walked, man. Now, if they had beaten
probably,
Dallas
but
and then
like
it came out, that's a whole different story. Yeah, then there'd start to be some actual you know, talks.
I don't think it should matter how close the series is though. It still feels unfair. Like there's millions of dollars of bets being placed on these games, and this guy was cheating. And like
Yeah.
they
The
do
thing is
so
though
many
is we don't
sports betting
know
things.
exactly
I'm just surprised it wasn't even a
what
story.
he was on though.
Yeah. I'm just
Right?
surprised there wasn't even
You
like an
could
investigation that was, publicized so that they could be like, mainly
which
for sports betting. Here, Vegas, look, we're not cheating, we're not screwing all of you out of your money. Like, look, this is all the, third party investigator or whatever. They did something,
Mhm.
drug test, whatever. But I
Yeah, well, and
it just flew under the radar more than I thought it would.
yeah, like I totally agree there should have been, some kind of statement put out about it, like just to let everybody know. Because again, I'm more on the side that it probably just, marijuana. Like it is legal in Colorado. So that's kind of more where I'm leaning. Like it was probably just, you know, smoking a couple joints and failed a drug test, especially because like you know, you I believe it is with marijuana, and we've talked about this before, but it's like it's actually I think it was this exact situation back in the plus, but like once you take it, you could fail a drug test if you take one in 20 days, because it,
Yeah,
it it resonates you. Or, but again, like there are other people that are like, it could be PEDs, it could be performance enhancing drugs, and we don't know. And I think that I agree. I mean, you don't want to air, someone's dirty laundry, especially in a situation like this. But at the same time, when you're a professional athlete and you're playing on the biggest stage, like there's got to be some accountability. And like you said,
yeah,
especially in the playoffs, these big market games, lots of bets being placed, whatnot. Like, that kind of maybe should, yeah, I think it should be something that's
yeah,
uh, put out to the public and just clearing the air and being like, "This is the situation."
yeah. And
You
something
don't even
like
have to
that they would
justify, just be
know
like, "This is what it
beforehand.
is,"
Like
basically.
obviously
Yeah.
you'd want players to know signing a contract like if you fail this drug test, this part of what you have to contractually do, then we will publicize. Like obviously don't be like, yeah, we're not going to tell anybody and then just do it. Like
Yeah.
obviously there you'd have to do it the proper channels, but
Yeah.
it's yeah, after what happened with Seattle, I find it hard to believe it was something too harmless, but it could be. Like
Well, the
it's
Seattle one
impossible to know.
wasn't what happened in Seattle wasn't drug related, though. Like, it was
Well,
that wasn't
so he
failing
did
a drug test.
so it wasn't failing a drug test, but he was found with a human trafficking victim in a
Mhm.
hotel room,
And
and
there was
the
alcohol
person
involved.
that he I don't saying sold out makes it sound like I'm saying something bad about him, and I'm genuinely not. I'm just saying the guy that he reported uh brought her there. That guy is a known uh drug and cocaine dealer.
Mhm.
Um, he's also just some Russian guy. Who knows? Maybe they're buddies from way back. Like I have no idea, and a lot of stuff hasn't been publicized. So like we are not the end all be all on this by any stretch. But
Mhm. And I don't wanna stretch this, topic on too much longer. All I can really
yeah,
say
that's fair.
is I'm curious, like, you know, uh
because it's a
from
real good
management to the
contract.
coaching staff to the players, like they're all saying the right thing. Like, the door's open when he's ready to come back. We're excited to have him back and have him ready to go. But at the same time, like, when you saw what the players were saying during the playoffs, I know maybe heat of the moment, but
It was very telling, and
that
it was telling
guys
in
weren't happy
good
with
ways.
them.
They were not happy that it happened again in the playoffs, but also they were still saying like, "Fuck, like he's our buddy. Like we want,
Yeah,
like we we're not just upset because it's screwing the team over, but we don't want to see this guy fall off the wagon or anything. Like we want him to succeed. We want him to be good, and
yeah,
it's just rough when stuff like that happens. So hopefully he can overcome his personal demons because
yeah,
it really is brutal both for him and the team. Like just watching the people kind of with that self destructiveness, it always sucks. But
yeah. I
I
also
believe
want
I
to
just
check
saw
something.
November 15th, or sorry, November 13th is when he is eligible to reapply. He can't come
Yeah,
back right away. He has to reapply at that date. I assume the waiting period's over. I assume he'll probably have to take a drug test. I got to imagine he'd pass that if he knows 6 months in advance when it's coming at the least, right?
yeah.
Um, so
Well, and
as soon as mid-November, we could see him back with the team, and who knows? Maybe this is all just a blemish, and we never hear about it. In which
the
case,
thing is also
that would
though
be
is
a
like
dynamite contract for the team.
and the Avs kind of saved his NHL career. Like, he's a former 10th overall pick. He was struggling with Dallas. Then he kind of had to spend some time in the AHL. It wasn't working with Dallas, so he goes and plays 2 years over in the KHL. He comes back over, ready to go and ready to be a full-time NHL guy. He plays one more year with Dallas, 57 games played, 0 goals, 10 assists. And then
It still
Dallas lets
wasn't
him go
clicking.
because it wasn't working. And then the Avs bring him in. Took him a couple years to get going, but he flourished into this stud for him. And so
Yeah,
the Avs are sitting there like man, we brought this guy in, we yeah, built him up. He's a superstar, and then to see these issues go on, it's obviously not easy for them, but like without a doubt, when he's ready to return, they will welcome him back, and I expect him to again just continue to be a stud for him like he has been the last couple years.
yeah, and I do think it's kind of it will be the last straw if it does happen again. Then
Yeah,
the 6 month suspension will now be a year suspension, and I do think the team would probably do a buyout at that point to try and use that cap space elsewhere. But
yeah,
hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully he can just kind of move on from it and continue playing lights out like he has been the past few years. Like a very underrated goal scorer. He was on pace for 40 goals last year in the
yeah,
regular season.
yeah.
But moving on from that, uh, yeah, they got they got him coming back, Landeskog, like you said, good stick Lecky, he'd be coming back. Like they've got a lot of guys that are hopefully coming back soon because their depth, they've got that really good scoring up front, but their depth is hurting. And we'll get into the lines here. Um, Also, just to note, as far as their draft picks go, not a lot to mention. They've already used up their first and second for this year, but they have the Rangers second for this year. They've used their thirds for the next 2 years, and then they have an extra fifth and seventh next year. So they're missing a couple picks, but you know nothing too much there. Mostly that first they're missing might be an issue if they want to buy at the deadline.
Where did their Oh yeah. Yeah, the first that was the Sean Walker deal. And they got him from Philly.
Yeah,
I was analyzing that theory. Just a quick little side story because I want to give some love to Philly. But basically, from trading Provorov, the Philadelphia Flyers netted 2 firsts because you got a first back as part of trading away uh, Provorov. You also got a couple seconds. You
he
did
also
have to
got out
take
from
on
under
Cal
Provorov.
Peterson's bad uh, contract, but again, it's not hurting Philly anymore,
Yeah,
or not really as much.
not
And
right now.
then you get Sean Walker back to replace Provorov. and then you flip Sean Walker and you get a first. I
And
mean,
you got
again,
a
you did have to
great
take
year out of
Ryan
Sean Walker.
Johansson's contract, but they're already out from it now. So, like, good on the Flyers.
Yeah, some nice deals there.
But yeah, we can dive over into the lineups. The only thing worth noting is I thought he was retired, but Pierre-Edouard Bellemare is on a PTO.
Nah, that guy is way too happy to retire. Like he is like outside of the game, he is one of my absolute favorite players in the entire league to watch. He's the
He's
guy.
a gem. Yeah.
He was so fun to watch in Lightning warm-ups and stuff. All the other guys are out there, they're doing their laps, their stretches, they're shooting at the net, and he's over there doing barrel rolls along the boards every game, just in front of the kids who have signs. He just goes and he rolls and he just does barrel rolls along the boards. It's one of the most goofy things I've ever seen. This guy's 39 years old, and
He's
it's
just
just
a
like
good dude
he's
who
just
has
always
fun playing
smiling.
hockey, yeah.
Yeah, like absolute vibes. When he's done, if he wants it, I hope he finds something to do with a team somewhere because the vibes follow him for sure.
Yeah.
But as far as the lineups go, and yeah, he's not going to be a part of these because he's on PTO. He's not signed. That first line, they've got Jonathan Drouin on the left side, Mikko Rantanen on the right side, centered by Nathan MacKinnon. I mean, what can you say about it? Like McKinnon
Yeah.
just dropped 140 points. He won the Hart Trophy. Like he
Yeah.
revitalized Drouin's career at least last year. We'll see what they can do this year. Uh,
And then I mean Rantanen, like again, I don't want to say he's underrated because he's most definitely not, but like I think he's in that level now where he's a superstar in this league, but
yeah,
he just doesn't necessarily get talked about enough because of the other guys in that category of superstar. Um, but again, like this is a guy who's going to drop 100 points. We've talked about it before. It is a contract year. He's yet to sign. If he's going in and it's a contract year, like fully expect Rantanen is he's just going to be playing lights out as he always does. But there's always just that little extra incentive for guys on contract years. We
yeah.
just saw it with Sam Reinhart.
We just saw it with William Nylander. Like
Yeah,
guys go crazy in their contract here because if people already hold you in high regard, you have that one extra good year or even a couple extra good months before you sign it. That can get you another $10 million over the course of a whole contract. Like so,
yeah,
guys go crazy hard on that contract year, and uh, it might be real interesting to see what happens with this team because McKinnon is firmly in his prime now. Like we just said,
yeah.
just won the Hart, and both the guys projected to be on his line, which were on his line last year, both of them are in contract years. Rantanen and Drouin both
Well,
have
Duran
1 year
just,
left.
I mean, he just re-signed a 1 year deal,
Yeah,
so
so I don't think he can resign now. He'd have to wait till is it January?
Yeah,
But
beginning of January, he'd be eligible too.
that would be very interesting to see. Like if it kind of feels like Drouin can be a great player, like 56 points last year. Can he be that great player without McKinnon? Because he hasn't been in his career. So
Yeah,
it would
I
be
think also with
interesting.
Duran
Does
though,
that
you
does that
need to.
bring the cost down a bit? Like, could he
It,
stay long term with the Avs on a reasonable deal for the team because of that?
I think so. I think another part of it is you need to wait until you fully find out, and hopefully they would know by the time he's eligible to sign extension or not. But you need to know what you're kind of where you're at with Landeskog and Nichushkin, right? Because that's a lot of money that potentially you know hoping it doesn't happen, but like if the worst happens for the Avs and Nichushkin can't come back, Landy can't play again. Like that's a lot of money that's opened up right there. That could, then you could maybe give Dren a little extra or something. But if things go perfect for the Avs and Nichushkin comes back, everything's dandy. Landy comes back, all's right there. Then like that's money you have to take into account that's gonna be added on to your cap situation. So And again, the Avs should know by then, but I mean, yeah, like if you're Duran, you can't be commanding, you know, the stars and the moon because it's going to get slapped right back at you. You can't play without McKinnon. As
True,
of right now, at least, like that's where it's at.
but
So
but if he can put up 2 years where he's knocking on the door of 60 points, maybe he hits it this next year, having
I
a
think
full season under his
he'll
belt
still
with him.
get paid,
Yeah,
but like it's not going to be anything absurd. Like it's probably going to be I would say at the top end, six
I
six
was
mil
gonna
per
say
year.
6. I was gonna say 6.
I would say yeah, and I think that would be fair. Like I mean,
And you
Zach
know what?
Hyman's getting
I think both
what
teams would
five
be
and a
happy.
half to be the perfect player with McDavid.
Yeah,
So what's stopping Duran from getting 5.5 caps going up 6 mil to be a great line mate with uh
with
McKinnon.
Nate Dogg.
Not only that, it's one of McKinnon's best friends, right? Like
Yeah, and
if
I think
McKinnon
both
wants him
camps would be
there,
very
Duran
happy with
wants to
that.
stay there. They're gonna make it work. Like I do expect him to stick with the team at this point now. It's really
Yep.
just what are the future contracts gonna look like with him and the team?
Yeah, if he can put up 60 plus points with them consistently and, just enable McKinnon to do what he can, and he's willing to do that for 5 to 6 mil, I think the Avs should jump at that. Like,
Yeah,
especially if,
100%.
they don't have to do it now. So, like, they can wait till the end of the season or at least partway through and be like, okay, now he's done it for a year and a half, a year and 3 quarters. Like, it's
Yeah,
sustainable, it looks like. So, and then, you know what? Even if those other guys do come back, you know what? Those are great guys to have on your second line. Like,
yeah,
maybe you'll just have a real kick ass top six that, they've had in the past. So
yeah.
it'll be
Right, I'm
interesting to
right there with
see
you.
what both of those two wingers get. But you know
Yeah,
what you're getting out of Nathan McKinnon for sure. And at 12.6 million per year, you better. So,
exactly.
but he's worth it. Gonna be worth it for probably the entire contract. Well, that final year, we'll see. Depends how much his speed keeps up, really. But
Yeah,
he's one of those guys with a lot of drive to his game. So I think it's going to be
yeah,
a long while before he even starts falling off.
yeah.
Moving on to the second line, though, uh, there's two spots here where those guys coming back could really fill in. This second line, Yair Inala, Casey Middlestat, and Nikolai Koval Kovalenko.
Kovalenko. So,
I've only heard of Middlestat, honestly. I hadn't even heard of the other two.
so, um, I have a few points with the second line, right? First of all, Kovalenko, he is coming. He just came over at the tail end of last year from the KHL. He's put up decent numbers his last two seasons in the KHL. 56 games played, 54 points, and then this past year, 42 games played, 35 points. So kind of hovering around averaging about point per game the last two seasons over in the KHL. He is 24, so he really doesn't have any NHL experience. So this is where we're going to kind of figure out what he is. And then Jiri Anala, he is coming over from Finland. Uh, well, I guess he is Finnish, but he did play the last 2 years over in Sweden. 2 years ago, 52 games played, 26 points, and then last year, 42 games played for 28 points. So,
It's pretty good in
like,
the
right,
Swedish league.
yeah. So, I mean, you don't really know what you're getting with these guys exactly right now in the NHL, but they are a bit more
They do look
experienced. Like,
promising.
Inala is 26, Kovalenko is 24. So it's not like you're, just immediately thrusting again 18, 19-year olds on the second line and being like, make it work. We
Yeah.
need you to. These are guys that are a bit more experienced. So I don't know. I really can't say whether they're good or bad because I don't know anything about them. Um,
And even Casey Middlestat, we only saw 18 games of him last year with the Avalanche. 10 points in those 18 games. He played well, slightly over half a point per game. Uh, but yeah, obviously with two guys that haven't played in the NHL yet, it's a pretty big question mark. Might be
I
good, might be bad. It's
loved
hard to say.
Also worth knowing, Casey Middlestat did have 9 points in 11 playoff games, his first trip into the playoffs. I
Ooh,
love
good,
this
good call.
Middlestat trade when it happened, and now I love it even more. Ye
For both
for the
sides,
Avs.
for
For the Avs. 100% the Avs. Like, Bowen Byram, fine player, sure, but Bowen Byram does not help this team out right now, even close to what Casey Middlestat does. Like, you remove Casey Middlestat, are
that's fair.
you like, you are fucked if you're rolling into the season with Inala, Kovalenko, and Ross Colton as your second line, or Logan O'Connor. Like,
Who
Casey
knows
Middlestat
who they're
is,
bringing up from the
you
minors
know,
as well?
the
Like, yeah,
piece that they were missing since Kadri left,
yeah,
right? Like, it was that overlooming thing. You thought maybe it was going to work. Going out and getting Ryan Johansson really did not work. And Casey Middlestat fits their timeline. Was like the perfect piece to add in there to bolster and kind of anchor down that second line. And he signed 5.75 for the next 3 years. So you don't got to worry about paying him anytime soon. He's exactly where he needs to be locked in on that second line. Um, I'm curious to see exactly who he plays with, and if he gets a Landy and a Chushkin with him,
that'll be real nice for him.
it's only going to be better. So
Yeah,
that trade
honestly,
is looking really good for the Avs right now, though.
honestly, I love the trade for both sides. Honestly, I
I,
think
I, I do for both,
they
but
have an
I like it
embarrassment
in.
of young riches over there in Buffalo
Mhm.
for forwards, and a couple more. Just another great defensive player. Like I think it works out in the long term for both teams very well. Like
No, I like it for
like
both sides. It's more in the sense of like if you removed both players right now from their team, be like, both players got injured or something, they're out for 3 months. It hurts the Avs way more than it hurts Buffalo.
yeah, like
Is in the sense
their
of what
top
I'm
four
talking
is
about.
solid in Colorado, and that's that's where a guy like Bowen Byram you want him to play. So
Mhm.
it yeah, they definitely have the defensive depth to move him for a guy that they needed center
That they
depth
really
really
needed
bad.
that. Yeah. Now more than ever,
Absolutely right.
especially looking at this lineup, like, and again,
Yeah,
it's tough to judge the lineup because of the guys that they're missing, but
yeah.
we got
And
to
you know
do
what?
with what's presented right now.
Yeah, and you know what? The judging stops for a little bit here because this third line I really like. On the left wing you got Miles Wood. On the right wing you got Logan O'Connor, centered by Ross Colton. I really like that third line.
I really like that. Yeah.
That's a really good defensive third line. That's a pretty solid scoring third line. Like the only thing they're not going to do is beat the crap out of you, but like
The only thing I'm not
you don't need
crazy
them to.
about is it's not popping up for what's O'Connor making right now? He's
I was
making
going to
1 mil,
say
so
that
he's
is
only
a
making
rather
1 mil
expensive.
right now. But yeah, like, going into next year, if that's your third line, that's a $9 million third line, but it's a great third line. And it's very solid depth. Like, those are all solid two-way guys. They can put up some points for you. They're all gonna be like, those are kind of, I think that's kind of your big 3 for the penalty kill.
I was going to say I think all
Like,
three
those are
are
your
playing the
f
penalty kill.
yeah, so, I mean, like, and it's a third line you can trust in all situations, offensive, defensive, like, they can do it, so I like that third line.
Yeah.
It's
I
up
think
there with
that's
one of my
awesome.
favorites, I think, actually. We've gone through a lot of really good third lines, but
Yeah.
this is one of the top ones.
It's in a way it's almost kind of reminding me of that Coleman, Goodrow, Gord third line that Tampa had for the cup runs. Like it
It's a
just all
knockoff version of it.
yeah,
Same
but like
premise, but, like, definitely not the
skill
same
level.
level.
Yeah. But
Like,
like
the same
just the way
premise around it, yeah.
they're all good defensively. They can all help score as well. They're a great energy line. Like the only thing I
And
don't know if they
Colton
have
and Wood
is
aren't
if they're
afraid to drop the
physical.
mitts.
I was gonna say I don't know how much they hit, but
I think
yeah,
I know Wood likes to mix it up. I know Colton does. O'Connor, I don't really think so. But again, if the other two guys
If the
are,
other two do,
you don't
it
need
doesn't
to.
matter.
It's the same as the legendary fourth line the Islanders had. Like Cizikas doesn't need to, like, he would still hit, but he doesn't need to be out there mixing it up and fighting because you got Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck with you. So you don't
Yeah.
need to, and you've got the other two guys that are going to be doing it. That as well are better than you at doing it.
Unfortunately, their depth does not stick around as much after the third line. This fourth line, they got Parker Kelly on the left wing, Yoel Kiviranta on the right wing, centered by Chris Wagner.
Dude, I thought Chris Wagner retired like 4 years ago. He
Oh,
took up
is
where he played last year.
is he old? I just assumed he was a rookie. I've only ever heard
He's
of Kiviranta out of these guys, to be
so
honest.
Parker Kelly was I believe he was one of the guys on the ice last year with Ottawa that was in the Dylan Larkin incident.
Right.
Wagner, he's 33, 22, 23. He played one game with the Bruins, or 21, 22. He played one game with the Bruins, the rest in the AHL. 22, 23 played one game with the Bruins, rest in the AHL. Last year with Colorado, 13 games with the Avs, and then he was down the AHL. So he's kind of been bouncing back and forth really between both, more playing AHL minutes, but like he's good defensively, but that's really all you're kind of getting out of him
And that's kind of
is a
all they
decent
need on their
defensive game.
fourth.
So
As far as their fourth line goes, I guess that's all you need to ask for. So, you know, if they can play replacement level minutes, chip in a goal every now and then, like I got to imagine the team will be just fine with that.
and again though, you also do have Belmar on a PTO. If you do sign him, probably going to be for league min. That's another fantastic guy you could slide in on that fourth line center. And then if Chris Wagner's your 13th forward, or 14th forward, like that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. It really is like if Belmar can prove that he's better than Wagner, he'll take his spot. Because looking at
Mhm.
Wagner's stat line, it's very similar to Belmar's all throughout his career.
Yeah.
They're like last year, Wagner only played 13 games for the Avs, 2 points, like not much production there. 58% for faceoffs though. That's probably the exact same thing they'd get from Belmar. He's great
Yeah.
at faceoffs. He can be good defensively. Every once in a while, something's gonna bounce weird and it'll go in the net.
And again, this when you're kind of looking at the wingers on the second line, they are unknowns. The fourth line, not the greatest, but again,
Two really good
if
players.
you've
Three,
two really
sorry.
good players that
They got Lehkonen as well.
Lehkonen, we totally forgot about Lehkonen. So like like you could be in a situation where all of a sudden you know Nichushkin and Landy slot in on the second line. Lehkonen goes to the third line, and then your fourth line, you're looking at like a Logan O'Connor, a Kiviranta, and a Kovalenko or something. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, shit, like this, that's actually a deep team.
Yeah. Adding shocking news, adding 3 top 6 level forwards to a team will make them better, right? Like
Exactly.
They've got a lot of guys out for weird reasons, and that obviously hurts their depth. You wouldn't wouldn't really know that looking at their defense though, because their defense still looks pretty damn solid, which is surprising because they're such an offense first team. But there are a lot of offensively minded defensemen here. Their first defensive pair consisting of Devon Taves and Cale Makar. I mean,
you can make the argument it's the top defensive pair in the league, and
I was
can't
gonna
even say you're wrong.
I was gonna say I'm trying to think of one that like that's pushing against them for it. Like I don't even know. Like I guess Roenick and Hughes.
I was thinking that, but again, Roenick, his playoff performance kind of hurt my opinion on that pairing. I mean, there's potential going into this year. Like Heiskanen and Harley could get up there. Maybe not in terms of like putting up the points, that Makar does. But again, I like you're
but
it's going
all
to be tough
around
to
for both of
find
them.
anyone that's going to put up points like Makar, right? So, but yeah, right now I think it probably is actually the best top pair.
Yeah, and especially because a lot of teams spread out their depth a bit, but they got
Yeah,
their two big boys right up on top, and
and it
they have
works.
really good chemistry. So why
Yeah,
wouldn't you? Um,
exactly.
and it's not like they're doing that and it's hurting their depth either. Their second pairing of Sam Gerard and Josh Manson, that's still pretty solid too.
Again, it's one of those ones we talked about with Chicago. Sam Gerard, he's known for a little bit smaller of a defenseman. He's more known for his offensive game than his defensive or two-way game. Josh Manson, he's known for his two-way game and his defensive game. So,
Big hits.
those
He's a
those two
big
have
boy.
worked together. I think they're going to continue to work together. Like it's a like terrific second pair. It's tough to find many that fit as well as these two do together for a second pair. In
Yeah,
terms of how they complement each other, at least. Skill
yeah.
wise, yeah, there's better.
And so you've got Makar, Taves, and Gerard, who are all pretty offensive minded. You got Josh Manson, who's pretty solid defensively, can chip in offense as well, but mostly defensive. And then you got the third pairing, consisting of Eric Brandstrom and Oliver Shillington, who are, for my money, both also offensive defensemen.
Yeah.
Uh, Not a lot of teams you see that have five offensive defensemen in the top six,
Well, and then, you know,
especially two on the third pair.
take your pick on who's going to be the seventh. They do have Calvin DeHaan, who he's known for his defensive game and uh, shot blocking. And then they also have Jacob McDonald, who
Played forward
does a little bit
last
of
year
everything. He can
at
play
times.
forward at times, defense. He can be a sniper and wheel and deal. He can be sit in his own end and just block shots. Like you could get a different version of him on any night. So you could just take your pick, and you've got maybe a 5% chance of picking right on what kind of player he's going to be. So they've got depth. Like that third pair does worry me though. Yeah, it's
And
two younger defensemen who are both more offensively inclined. So
if
you're
their
hoping one of
plan
them steps up and says, "Hey,
stay at
I'll
home,
try and be the shutdown guy," and we'll see if it works.
yeah, because if their plan is to see which of them can be better offensively and then have them play with Dahan, unless he comes back in a big way, like Dahan was just on Tampa, and for a guy that was built up that was really good defensively, he missed a lot of assignments in front of the net, and that was like the thing we brought him in to do. Uh, it was not great. It wasn't atrocious, but like there's a reason we didn't bring him back. So
I do think a big part of it also does come down to the system that teams play.
that is true.
Um,
Like some teams just run a completely separate system where some guys can thrive and some can't. Like that's why we see guys like, Huberdeau put up 115 points and then he drops down to 60 the next year. Like
mhm.
it it sometimes it works places and it doesn't others.
Yeah, because like again, when he's playing, you're not expecting anything from him offensively, but like I remember how solid he was with Chicago, and so I'm like it's tough to
Yeah.
try and think of like how a guy can be so good on such a shit team and then go to a team that's been Stanley Cup favorites the last couple of years, Stanley Cup champions, and fall off. It's but
And
again,
to be
there's no
fair,
doubt
we
this is a
did
guy that
we did
will
change our
put his
defensive
body
scheme.
in front of any puck. So
Yeah.
there is that, but again, there's options
They've got they've got
for
options.
the Avs.
I'd love to see Jacob McDonald get into a couple of games because that was fun watching him last year on the Sharks. Just walks in as
Yeah,
defenseman,
he
just
was he was
started
such a
shooting the
wild
lights
card
out.
player. Yeah, it was always a you just never knew what you were going to get with him. It was always a guessing game of what Jacob McDonald will we see.
Who knows if Gorgiev isn't great this year, maybe he'll put on the pads. Like let's
He
see if he
might
can
have
really
to
play every position.
because I'm not loving Colorado's goaltending situation.
Yeah, it's a little suspect. They do have a starter. They got their starter, locked in. Alexander Gorgiev, of course, and then the backup right now is Justice Anunen. Anunen, probably Anunen.
Yeah, because
Um,
Francouz retired.
yeah. So looks like they drafted Justice. They've got him for 2 more years. He's an RFA at the end of that. Um, Gorgiev has 1 year left on his deal. He's making 3.4 mil. Do you think they try and get a goalie at some point this year? Do you think they try and extend Gorgiev? Like,
I think they'd be insane to extend Georgiev, honestly. Well, not insane, but again, it's yeah, there was
it
flashes of it
can
in the
work, but
playoffs, but it's like
it's not
again,
great.
I think Georgiev's really a goalie that is being elevated by his team, and even then, like his stats aren't super great.
No, an
So
897 last year in 63 games played. Man,
yeah,
they're playing them Connor Hellebuck levels of games. Like
'cause they can't afford a backup. And the backup they did have, Francouz, was injured. Right,
they,
so I mean, with
yeah.
Georgiev, you probably are gotta be expecting, yeah, he's gonna be playing 60 to 65 games again, and if the numbers aren't great, yeah, I think if you're Colorado, I think you gotta at least look around and see what's out there, like,
Peter Mrazek,
a
perhaps.
potentially Peter Mrazek, a Laurent Brossoit, actually, maybe not Laurent Brossoit, but, like, you could also potentially be looking maybe San Jose, like, Mackenzie Blackwood's gonna be probably a goaltender who is gonna be available. Um,
Yeah, especially after they grabbed Askarov. Like,
I mean, shit, if things are go south for Ottawa and Allmark doesn't wanna resign, like, maybe you try and make a move for him. Uh, if Varlamov's willing, I think he's got a no movement clause with the Islanders, but, like, if he's willing to waive it to go back to Colorado, that could be a great pickup, and he's on a very manageable cap hit.
how old is Varlamov at this point? He's been around for a while.
35?
36.
36.
But yeah, 918 last year. That's pretty solid.
He's the whole reason the Islanders ended up making the playoffs, and then even then, in the playoffs, he was the guy over Sorokin because he was playing
Yeah,
just that damn good. So there's options for the Avs. I don't expect them to like make a move before the season, but I think if things are going south with Georgiev, you got to at least look around and try to, even if you don't even move Georgiev out as a part of it, you just bring someone else in, and then whether it's a tandem or bringing in someone puts a spark under Georgiev and it works, or he goes to be your backup for the rest of the year because he's only on this is like last year of his deal. So yeah, you got to at least keep an eye on it and don't let it go too south to the point where
at early
you're a
season,
you're
you
you're
got to
like
make a
you're a
change.
New Jersey or something.
Yeah, you can't miss
Hell,
the playoffs with this squad.
if New Jersey's got Markstrom, if Jake Allen becomes available, there's another guy.
Yeah, could even could even do that. Like there's goalies around the league that they could definitely
Yeah,
pick up, and quite a few of them are on rebuilding teams that aren't looking to compete super hard. So like,
it would be tough because I know teams like the Allmark deal was a very like one-off one because I know GMs are very most GMs don't have a problem with trading like, forwards and defensemen within their division. Um like the Thomas Hurdle deal. But the Allmark one is weird because GMs don't like moving goalies within their own division. And I think that's what kind of hurt Boston was to the point where
they're so weird
there was
about
no other
goalies,
team
man.
available. And so, I mean, you look at Minnesota, they've got Jesper Wallstead who's looking to crack into the lineup and make his presence known. If a Gustafson becomes available,
That would be really nice
you
for
think you
them.
got I think you got to try and jump on that. But again, how hard is it going to be to pry him from Minnesota, and how
How
willing is Minnesota going to be to help
that
make the Avs more stacked that they're going to have to face in the playoffs
that's one of Minnesota's
almost every
biggest
year.
rivals. Like
Yeah.
they would make them pay for it.
Yeah.
I
And that's
wonder
the thing, right? Is Colorado would definitely have to overpay. Man, but
what about a Charlie Lindgren in Washington?
I don't there's not the long enough track record yet. Like if it comes through most of the season and he's kind of been the guy for Washington and he's been playing really good, then go for it, especially with his cap hit. But yeah, I mean, why not? Like it could work. It's not going to hurt him if they make a move for him.
If Gorgiev's playing bad enough that they're looking to make a change, I doubt them getting Lindgren would, be worse, right?
Exactly. Exactly right. I
But
wouldn't like, and again, I'm a huge Charlie Lindgren fan. He's not at the top
he just
of the
hasn't done
list
it
of
for
guys they
long
go
enough.
after, but he could easily be it. Like, yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's all we got for the lines for the projected lineups from Daily Faceoff. Thank you to them. But that covers pretty much everything except for our final thoughts. Brundi, do you have the
yeah,
Colorado Avalanche making the
yeah,
playoffs?
yeah. Obviously, like it's still a playoff team. The depth kind of hurts on forward right now, but they're gonna get Nichushkin back at some point, and they're gonna get Landy back at some point. And this team's gonna be just fine. Like you've got McKinnon, you've got Ranton, you've got Makar, you've got Taves. Like they're gonna be fine.
Probably. I'm gonna say they make the playoffs as well, but I think it's gonna be closer than last year.
It's gonna be closer, but again, I'm more I think leaning on the side of I think 5 teams from Central probably make it. At the very least 4. And I don't see Colorado being outside the top 4 in that division.
That's the thing. Like
Like they could be in a wild card
Nashville
spot,
could
but
leapfrog them. Minnesota's looking to take a step. St. Louis is looking to take a step.
St.
Like
Louis is not finishing above Colorado though. I know you're a big Blues guy, but
they got
St. Louis is
43 wins
not
last year. They got
they're not at
43
the
wins
point
last
yet
year.
of
Is all I'm saying.
surpassing the Avs though. St. Louis is gonna be contending again, but
St.
I
Louis
can't
got a
put them
decent
above
bit
the
better.
Avs.
I think the Avs got a little bit worse.
I don't think the Avs got worse because like, what did the Avs really lose though? Like they kind of just stayed the same almost to an extent.
Yeah, they pretty much stayed the same.
Like they really didn't.
If you want to say that they lost Nichushkin, I guess.
Yeah,
Was
but
he
like they're
was he
gonna be getting
injured?
him back.
Was he injured last year at any point? Because
Yeah,
he did play 54 games last year.
yeah. He was injured. Yeah,
Okay, but yeah, I do think they are still a playoff team, but they got people on their heels now, especially
hmm
the Predators and then the Blues and the Wild. It's really going to be interesting between kind of the Avalanche, the Predators, the Blues, the Wild, and then in the Pacific, the Kings and the Golden Knights on who's going to
yeah.
get those last spots in the division, and then who's going to get the wild card spots.
Well, that door might be a little more wide open for the Golden Knights now after the injuries with LA, but
Oof, yeah, that is true. Those Drew Doughty's looking like he's going to be out for a good bit now,
yeah,
which absolutely brutal for them.
it's a tough go for the Kings, but yeah, I'm excited to see some of these young guys they got now step up and take the charge until Doughty comes back.
Yeah, maybe
Someone's
that'll
getting thrown into the fire there, whether it's Jordan Spence or Brant Clark. One of them's getting thrown into the fire there and hoping it works.
that would be real interesting to see if Brant Clark could take a big step when they kind of need a guy to really help run the offense from the blue line.
He's got the skill to and the potential to, so
We know
it's
we
just a
know
matter
he
of can he
can,
make it work just being thrown into it.
but I guess the last thing for the Colorado Avalanche, Brundi, one player win an individual award this year.
Mm-hmm.
This one's obvious and not obvious because there's a lot of really solid answers. I think I know what you're gonna go for, and I think you're going off the board with this one, but I'll let you say it.
Yeah, I'm going with Gabriel Landeskog winning the Bill Masterton. Our favorite award. No, I mean he probably will win it, but like we're not doing that award because
I don't think he wins it.
there's 32 winners of that award really every
I
year.
yeah. I
Um,
don't think a player in the league gets it next year. I think actually, you know what? I think they might award it to Monahan or like something like that. But
maybe.
I I don't know the protocol for it. This is kind of uncharted
Yeah.
territory. It's weird. But
In term, yeah, like there's so many good ones. Like
I want to say there's not a wrong answer, but
that's the thing, right? Like between a couple of the guys, like
there's a lot of very reasonable and realistic answers here
I just
for
want
a
to
couple
double
of guys.
check what he did last year.
What he did last year. This
Okay,
guy's
I'm
gonna say
going.
Casey Middlestat for Selke.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
No, you weren't. No, you weren't.
Yeah, it was actually. I was just looking up what his defensive numbers were. No, I'm
No,
not.
you weren't.
Um,
You can't
it
fool
was
me. That's
it
too
was
much.
part. It was. This goes back to our off season, like
Predictions?
not well. I guess like our bold predictions for this upcoming season.
Yeah.
I've talked about it before. I'm big on guys going into contract years, especially guy Rantanen's size and skill. Mikko Rantanen wins the Rocket Richard.
Yeah. That's exactly the very slightly off the board pick I thought you were gonna go with because I knew you had said that you thought he would
I mean,
put
I said
60 in the back of the net.
he's tucking at least 60. He could go more, but he's putting up 60, and yeah, Matthews is gonna have a tough time catching him. Ovi's
Like,
gonna have a tough time catching him.
well, Ovi's gonna have a tough time watching from the sidelines as he watches these guys put up numbers like that.
Hey, don't come on, man.
Ovi doesn't sniff
You can't
40.
be dogging on Ovi this late in his career now. He's earned our respect.
Nah. He earned my respect when he was good. Now he's washed.
Those are some brutal allegations. We will not stand for those here.
Yeah, Patrick Kane was good last year. I'll respect him.
All right, I'll take it. Fair enough. I'll meet you in the
We'll
middle
take
there.
the wins where you can.
Who do you got? Now that I took the obvious pick, kind of left you the scraps. A couple of bums you got to pick from, but
couple of freaking bums here. Ugh. I mean the whole thing is you want to try and guess the guy who's the most likely to do it, so I'm gonna go with it. Cale Makar to win the Norris Trophy. I mean,
yeah,
he's probably
good
the
pick.
odds-on favorite. Like,
yeah,
you know, you obviously could say Nathan McKinnon for the Art Ross, the Hart again. He literally just won it. You could say him for the Rocket. I doubt it playing with Rantanen, but I mean, like,
well,
would it shock anybody?
McKinnon had more goals than Rantanen last year.
Yeah, like he had 51 goals. Like, I don't think it would shock anybody if he won for most goals, but you know, either way, I think there's a lot of great options here, especially with McKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar specifically.
Yeah,
but
without a doubt,
that's all we got. That's all we got for our two teams here. The Avs are looking to win another cup, and you know,
Chicago's maybe looking to get another first overall pick.
Yeah, like the Avs are really at that point where the fans of the team are very nervous going into the season, but everyone else looks at them and goes like, they have too many stars, they have too much pedigree, we can't take this team lightly. Like, nobody feels good about drawing them in the playoffs, even if you match up well.
Yeah.
Like, this is a team that could easily catch Magic and end up with another set of rings.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100%. Yeah. So Kale McCarr is pretty clear right now, the odds-on favorite for the Norris. Um, yeah, Mikko
What about the
Rantan's
Hart?
Rantan's kind of a dark horse for the Rocket, but he's in there. He's in there. What are you thinking for the Hart?
For the Hart Trophy for McKinnon. Or hell, McCarr's probably the first
Uh,
defenseman on there.
he's second. McDavid's the favorite, then McKinnon, then Matthews.
Yeah. Makes sense.
McCarr is between Kaprizov and Matthew Tkachuk,
Fair.
with
I like
Kaprizov being the more favorite of the three.
yeah. I like the respect on Kaprizov there because if Minnesota makes the playoffs this year, it's probably because him and Brock Faber willed it to happen.
Yeah.
But that's all we got on these two teams.
That is all.
That is another big fat episode here. But you know what? That just means we talked about potentially two of your favorite teams for even longer. So
Yeah, exactly. One thing I just want to quickly shout out and plug here before we get out of here
oh my.
is Kenya's ice hockey team
Yeah.
has officially been added to the IIHF, the International Ice Hockey Federation. Congrats to them. That's a huge stepping stone and just further proof that the game of hockey continues to grow globally. So, hopefully sometime in the future we'll get to see Kenya competing in international play against other countries on a big stage.
Yeah. Kenya and Bahrain. Bahrain also became a member
Oh,
of
I
the
did not hear about them.
IIHF.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
there we go. Even better.
Kenya had a very good video of some of their higher ups in their leagues opening the email and seeing that they were officially in and it's a really endearing video. They're so excited that they get to be a part of it. So they've
Yeah.
been the big name going around. But Bahrain and Kenya are both in, and it's just hockey as a sport growing. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. We love to see it, and hopefully just continues to grow. But that will wrap up everything for this episode. We hope all of you Chicago or Colorado fans enjoyed, or any of you hockey fans in general who just tuned in. We hope you guys enjoyed. You guys will be listening to this if you are listening to it on the day of release on the Friday. As we mentioned last episode, we will have the special episode for the Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers. That will be coming out on the Saturday, where we will have a guest joining us to discuss those two teams. But, Braden, other than that, any last words here? Final thoughts, final statements.
You know what? I think we summed it up pretty good. Avs want to win. Well, Chicago wants to win, but their fans probably want them to lose for like one more year. And you know what? We hope it for them. We hope it for them. We don't mind seeing Chicago losing. You know.
Well, to an extent, for me.
To an extent.
I'm cheering for him sometimes. But yeah, that does wrap up everything for this episode. If you guys want to talk hockey with us, you can find the link to any of our socials down in the description of whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. Once again, we hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for listening, and we will see you guys tomorrow.